New Orleans Saints second-year quarterback Spence Rattler starts off things hot when it comes to the quarterback battle, but fending off Tyler Shough is not going to be easy. We got all that and a little bit of lagniappe for you on today's episode of Locked On Saints.
You are Locked On Saints, your daily New Orleans Saints podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What is good, Who Dat Nation and Who Dat family? I am your host, your friend Ross Jackson, New Orleans native, your New Orleans Saints expert and credentialed member of the media covering those New Orleans Saints as a Saints beat writer over at LouisianaSports.net. And on today's episode, day one of New Orleans Saints training camp is in the books, and I'm cheesing because we're here to break it all down. I'll give you everything you need to know from day one. We're also going to take a look at some of the young safeties that are already standing out and standing up after Tyrann Mathieu's retirement, but a new face added to that equation. And we're going to kick everything off with the thing that everybody in New Orleans wants to know about is how did the quarterbacks perform? Well, Spence Rattler got off to a hot start, but don't expect Tyler Shough to sit back for very long. We got all that coming up for you on today's show. We appreciate you very much, whether it's your first time or your next time, being here with us this time, making us your first listen and being an everydayer here on the show, which is a proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode brought to you by our friends over at Monarch Money. You can take control of your finances today with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. We made it. We made it, fam. It is that time. It is training camp. We're here. There's actually things happening on football fields, and I'm so excited. But I want to start off everything here with a look at the quarterback battle. It's the biggest story in New Orleans-ish. Certainly the biggest story around the New Orleans Saints. And Spence Rattler got off to a very hot start, kind of continuing that hot start that he had during OTAs and mandatory mini camps. Let me be very, very clear. This first day of training camp was like an hour and 8 minutes of practice, an hour and 20 minutes of practice. It wasn't a ton of, big highlight plays or big bombs down the field or anything like that. Like, we're watching these quarterbacks and this entire team get acclimated, get comfortable and all that. But what I saw from Spence Rattler was kind of a unique level of comfort, which is kind of what separated him so far in the other conversations during OTAs and mandatory minicamp and all that. Spence Rattler got the first team reps. Tyler Shough was with the second team, and then Jake Haener, who made his kind of offseason debut. Remember, he couldn't participate during OTAs and mandatory minicamp, kind of nursing that or managing that, navigating that oblique injury. He was with the third team for the day. So it's important to keep all of that in context, right? But here's what we saw from Spence Rattler. Quick processing. His process is absolutely sped up. The game seems to be slowing down for him, but he's seeing the field and reading the field very well. Gets very comfortable in some of these kind of up-tempo situations too. That's a good thing that you're going to see from both of these young quarterbacks, Spence Rattler and Tyler Shough, who have done that bit, if you will, throughout their time in college and everything, right? Doing the up-tempo, no huddle, kind of high-octane kind of approach. And so I think that was a big thing that we got to see kind of continue for Spence Rattler, bridging the gap from minicamp and OTAs into this training camp session. So we saw him get the most reps. I charted him with 17 plays, not 17 passes, but 17 plays. Interestingly, some designed runs in there as well, which is super intriguing to see on day one of training camp. But it's Kellen Moore, right? Very innovative, very creative offense, but also nothing happening by mistake, everything having a purpose. So that's something I'll certainly be watching more of, particularly during the open practices and things like that, when we kind of get our opportunity to be able to see all this. And so I think that was something that stood out. And then when he was passing, he threw 9 passes. From what I could see, he completed all 9 of those passes. Now, I want to be very clear too, like sometimes our angles aren't the best and stuff like that. And so, we chart what we can tell with the help of the officials that are out there and all those other things, but just something to keep in mind. And it was a little bit of a blend. There were some check down passes there, but there were also some really nice passes in the intermediate area. In particular, Spence Rattler connecting with Chris Olave over the middle of the field. That's a connection with either one of these quarterbacks that you absolutely want to see continue to blossom. One of my favorite things that we heard from Chris Olave after practice when he spoke to us was not just that, like, he's feeling really good and that he's, not afraid to get hit and that everything's kind of positive in terms of his recovery after that, the several head injuries and concussions last year, all those things. But that he wants more downfield routes this year. Like, that very much felt like Rashid Shaheed's, role last season in Clint Kubiak's offense. But now here with Kellen Moore, maybe an opportunity for Chris Olave to get back to being kind of the downfield threat that you saw him be in college and in his early days here, or his earlier years here in New Orleans. I say early days, he's 3 years into his career. It's still the early days for Chris Olave. But look, all that said, Spencer Rattler had a really strong day, even though there wasn't like the big fireworks plays like I mentioned. But look, Tyler Shough is not going to get left out of the conversation at all. He had 15 reps with the second team. I had him charted as completing either 2 of 6 passes or 4 of 8 passes. The reason why that number is a little different is because, look, it's non-contact practices, right? And so there are times where we estimate something as a sack, but the play doesn't just stop because it's a sack. It's practice. You play through and then you go out there and you still try to get an attempt off. And so there were 2 occasions in which a sack was played through and then 2 passes ended up getting out in that way. And both of those were completed. So I want to make sure that I'm incorporating as much of that information for you as possible so that you have all of the context there. And so it's not just as simple as, he completed half of his passes or whatever. Like, there were some drops as well. And then we saw a little bit of dropsies from the Saints. I wouldn't get too overly concerned about that. It's the first day of practice, one of their few days practicing outside throughout the offseason programs and stuff like that. So don't overreact to that. But, some of these things, I'm just trying to provide as much context here. I care more about being accurate than looking right. You know what I mean? And so let's be accurate with all of this. And so a couple of things that we saw from him that I thought were really, really nice. He had one pass where he was under pressure, which he was a lot behind that second team offensive line. So there was a lot of pressure coming in his way. But there was a time to where that pressure came through immediately and he just quickly got the ball out on a completion to a tight end over the middle. So really good, just awareness of what was happening around him, getting the ball out quickly, not, overreacting, but also not underreacting because it's a practice environment. So good to kind of see the clock speed up in that way. And then he had a great pass down the left sideline to Donovan Peoples-Jones that ended up being incomplete, but was beautifully placed, kind of put where only the receiver could get to it, all that. We've seen a few of those other passes from Tyler Shough during OTAs and mini camps where maybe the receiver doesn't catch it, but it's put in a place where the receiver could get to it and had the opportunity to go and make that play. So good stuff from Tyler Shough there. As for Jake Haener, had 10 total reps, completed a few of his passes as well as he went through. I think he had the fewest passing attempts on the day for sure, but he had some nice plays. He completed 4 out of 6 of his attempts. But the best play that he had was a moment where Michael Jacobson, again, standing out in training camp, as he so often does, crossing the middle of the field. Haener kind of had to put the ball over Elliott Davison, the undrafted free agent safety, but then keep it underneath JT Gray, who was closing in from over the top. So did a good job getting air under the ball and allowing Michael Jacobson to go up to make the catch, but not put too much under it that, you risked, JT Gray being able to make a play on the ball. So really good ball placement there by Jake Haener and getting that through. So I think all 3 of these quarterbacks had standout moments for sure, but I think the strongest day again goes to Spencer Rattler, who again has more starts in the NFL and was playing with that first team. So now we expect that that's going to rotate. I wouldn't be shocked to see Tyler Shough with the first team tomorrow and then Spencer Rattler with the second team. So we'll see if he can continue that trajectory or if Tyler Shough takes a step ahead because he's got the starters around him, right? But he's also going up against the starting defense in that case. So we'll see where things go with all that. But that's kind of where things sit right now on the quarterback battle. Still very early, but really, really, really interested to see where things continue to go in this quarterback battle. And so as we continue to track that, that's obviously going to be a big part of training camp here. But another big part of training camp is how the Saints are replacing Tyrann Mathieu, who retired unexpectedly on Tuesday. And it's all coming down to the young safeties and a new face in Julian Blackmon in the building. Let's break it all down as we continue on with today's episode of Locked On Saints, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode brought to you by our friends over at Monarch Money. I use Monarch Money like crazy because I kind of, treat myself as a business. I travel to go and see games and be there for, in the press box and everything. I go to California to cover the training camp practices when the Saints go out there. And so what Monarch Money has given me the opportunity to do is to have sort of this financial control center where I can keep track of my accounts, my spending, all those other things, but also my expenses, business expenses, all of that, puts it all in one place and gives you easy access to be able to share when you're sharing the responsibility of some of those finances with others. And so I absolutely love the Monarch Money app. It has really replaced like 3 or 4 different apps for me. So if you're looking for a way to really take control of your finances, you can do so today with Monarch Money. Just use promo code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com and you'll get 50% off of your first year. That's monarchmoney.com. Promo code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year. Today's episode also brought to you by our friends over at Rugiet. Rugiet is this really unique sort of approach to some of the things that you've heard of before, the pills, Viagra, Cialis, all that good stuff. But this goes beyond the usual pill. It's called Rugiet Ready. It's a next-gen prescription treatment, 3-in-1 formula that dissolves under the tongue, activates in 15 minutes, and has effects that can last up to 36 hours. So you know that you can be confident and always ready whenever the moment is right. So you can head over to rugiet.com/LockedOnNFL and use promo code LockedOnNFL to get 15% off. That's rugiet.com/LockedOnNFL. Promo code LockedOnNFL for 15% off. Individual results may vary based on prescription treatment. Compound drugs are permitted to be prescribed by and under federal law, but are not FDA approved and do not undergo FDA safety, effectiveness, and manufacturing review. Please review the Rugiet website for full safety information. All right, family. The New Orleans Saints had a bit of a shocker earlier this week with a look at Tyrann Mathieu retiring. How do the New Orleans Saints kind of fill out that role next to veteran safety Justin Reid? That's a big conversation going on inside the building for New Orleans right now. And right now they're turning to their young players and now a new face that enters the conversation as well. So let's take a look at what we saw today. So when it came down to the safety rotation today without Tyrann Mathieu, next to Justin Reid, we saw Jordan Howden with the first team. I'll be curious to see if that continues to rotate over the course of the next few days, or is that more so something that ends up being like the consistent piece, right? That Jordan Howden just kind of steps into that role and continues to play well. And as long as he continues to play well, has the opportunity to be able to maintain that role potentially going into the preseason and potentially beyond. The second team safeties were some other familiar faces, right? Jonas Senker, the rookie drafted out of Virginia, who I think has a real shot at this role as well because of the versatility that he brings. At least 500 career snaps during his collegiate years at safety, as a deep coverage safety, as well as a box safety, another over 500 in the slot as well. I mean, this guy did everything during his time over at Virginia, and his tape is so incredibly fun. So you can sort of see where all that kind of goes. And then the next one that was next to him during that was actually Terrell Burgess. I kind of expected that to be JT Gray, if I'm being completely honest. I mean, JT Gray's got the seniority, all those other things. He's seen more as a special teams asset than he is as a defensive asset. But I figured that he would be the one to kind of step up a little bit there, or be asked to step up a little bit there. But instead, the Saints turned to a new addition in Terrell Burgess, who, again, has a lot of versatility, has some really, really good special teams acumen that he throws into the conversation as well. But maybe the deciding factor around him is the fact that he has familiarity with Brandon Staley, New Orleans Saints' new defensive coordinator. So Terrell Burgess, as well as Jonas Senker out there, a very versatile tandem between the two of them. Could be a lot of fun to continue to watch. It felt like Jonas Senker was playing a little bit more of the like drop down into the box and get your hands dirty, kind of. Just reminded myself of drop down and get your eagle on. But drop down in the box and get your hands dirty with, style of box safety or close to the line of scrimmage safety, whatever it might be. But but yes, Terrell Burgess, immediately stepped into a little bit of this kind of deep coverage role and this other safety role. So with the second team. So that was the second team safeties. And the third team safeties is a JT Gray, an undrafted free agent, Elliot Davison out of UTSA. So that was the rotation there. But now things become really interesting because Julian Blackmon was not out at practice today because, or Wednesday, in case you're listening to this later. I know we got a lot of people here live, but for those of you that listen later as well, Julian Blackmon wasn't officially signed yet, right? So the Saints, and there were reports that the Saints were going to sign him or were working to sign him as early as Tuesday night, like very soon after the Tyrann Mathieu retirement news. But that signing was not made official. Now we're getting official reports on what the contract looks like, right? Ian Rappaport over at NFL Media with the 1 year up to $5.5 million contract. I think this is really important because Julian Blackmon's a playmaker. 10 interceptions over the course of his career, just a 5-year career so far. Still a young guy, going to be 27 in August. So he'll be 27 when the season begins. And so he has that, and not only 10 interceptions in his career, by the way, but 7 interceptions over just the last 2 seasons. And so you're talking about a team last year who in the last 8 or 9 games of the year had 3 takeaways. Now all of a sudden you add guys like Quincy Riley and Jonas Sanker and Justin Reed and Julian Blackmon, who all sort of have this element of ball hawking ability and everything like that, or at least playmaking ability nonetheless. That makes a lot of sense, right? You can see the A to B about what it is that the Saints needed and then what it is that the Saints went out and got when it comes to those players, particularly at the safety position and at the cornerback position. But the biggest question around Julian Blackmon is just his ability to stay healthy. Now, look, when we look at his last 2 years, he's been on the field far more than he hasn't been on the field, right? 16 games, 14 games, all that. A couple of years ago, he had a 6-game season because he had an injury during that year. And then you go back to his collegiate days and there were some injuries and some concerns there as well. And so I think you have to be ready for that if you're New Orleans, because you're trying to find a solution to a big gap right now in your defense. Tyrann Mathieu, is somebody that a lot of folks will say and would willingly say, and I think he would say it too, kind of took a little bit of a step back last season, I think is kind of the evaluation of him. But still, as a vocal leader, as a culture guy, as the heartbeat of the defense, one of the heartbeats of the defense and all that, along with DeMario and Cam last year, Demario Davis and Cam Jordan, my apologies. That really gives you a big space to fill when a guy like that leaves. And look, this is one of the reasons why Jonas Sanker might end up being the guy, because he's such a good leader and he has that vocal quality to him. He served that role during his time in college, so on and so forth. He's a leader in his home, a great family unit, all this other stuff. And so there's just a lot going Jonas Sanker's way. But I do think that it's worth acknowledging that Julian Blackmon could come in and maybe push a little bit early for some of these roles, right? And so I think that that's the thing that you're looking for. And it's right to observe that culture and heartbeat don't win football games. But if you don't have somebody that's helping everybody buy in, you're not going to win any football games either. So it doesn't help you win football games, but a lack of it sure helps you lose football games. And so I think that finding somebody that's going to be able to provide that, you're looking at multiple players replacing Tyrann Mathieu from this point. But when it comes to the on-field production and the on-field play, it's going to be very, very intriguing to watch how all of this settles itself and what this competition looks like. But early goings, I think what you see are Jonas Sanker very much in the mix, Jordan Howden very much in the mix, and it'll be interesting to see where Julian Blackmon kind of arrives with all this. So we're expecting that we'll see him at practice tomorrow. And so we'll see where it is that he goes. Just for folks that might be interested, as we're talking about corners and all that, we saw exactly what we expected. Alontae Taylor working in the nickel, working in the slot. And then Kool-Aid McKinstry and Isaac Yiadom started off over on the outside at corner. And then Quincy Riley was the second team corner. So that's what you would expect when you see from, first day of training camp, right? A lot of seniority dictating the way that snaps are divvied out and all those other things. So, all right, coming up next, I want to take a look at a few, I want to do a rundown of a bunch of different positions. I want to take a look at the offensive line, let you know what we saw there. We're going to dive into Devin Neal getting first team reps, shocker. And then we'll also dive into something that impressed me about the defense that maybe isn't necessarily play on the field, but that shows you that this team's really already understanding what's being asked of them by their new defensive coordinator. We got that all coming up for you next as we continue on with today's episode of Locked On Saints, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. This episode is presented by Yahoo Fantasy. I love Yahoo Fantasy. This is the only fantasy app that I use at this point, and I absolutely love it because of everything that you've got in there, right? You want to make sure you're getting that trash talk going. You want to make sure you have a good user interface when it comes to your draft and managing your roster and doing all these things as well. I think you're going to find all of that over at Yahoo Fantasy, and you're going to love it just like I do. Right now, all of the best are playing Yahoo Fantasy, and you should too. Whether you're a first timer or maybe you're a veteran that's drafting for your millionth league, I already told you about all the great features on that app as well that you don't want to miss out. And on top of all of that, to celebrate 28 years of fantasy greatness, Yahoo Fantasy is going to be dropping 28 big new features over the course of 28 days, giving you more ways to play, more ways to draft, and more ways to win. And it all begins on August 4th. So stay tuned and get started by creating or joining a Yahoo Fantasy Football League at yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. That's yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. And let's make this fantasy season the best one yet. Let's get it, Who Dat Nation. The New Orleans Saints offensive line, I'm convinced, is set. I think we're going to see rotations. I mean, I asked Kellen Moore about this on Tuesday's kind of pre-training camp presser. And I said, look, we've seen the same offensive line from, not rookie minicamp, but we see the same offensive line since OTAs to mandatory minicamp, all those other things. Now you get to this next bit of the calendar here in training camp, and you kind of wonder, like, man, I wonder what that offensive line is going to look like. And the answer is the same. So we're still seeing Kelvin Banks Jr. at left tackle, still seeing Trevor Penning at left guard, and we're still seeing over at right tackle Taliesin Fuanga. So that's returning Fuanga back to his collegiate position. That's keeping Kelvin Banks at his collegiate position, and then maybe also trying to elevate a bit of what you're going to see from Trevor Penning because of the fact that you end up seeing all of this additional just usage that benefits him and that plays to his strengths. He's violent. He's got good, athleticism to his game. He's physical. And now you put him kind of in this box where he's got to be violent and physical and all those other things, but you're also going to have him pull and be a lead blocker and everything. So I think that what we're seeing from this New Orleans Saints from this New Orleans Saints team and offense is that the offensive line is pretty much already set. So I think that once we got into that first day of training camp and we didn't see any other rotation, I was like, okay, I think this is what we're going to be looking at week one. Not super shocking, but I absolutely love it. So the thing that you will see though is going to be some rotation still on that first team. I imagine, like, let's say they decide to give Cesar Ruiz a veteran rest day or whatever, then all of a sudden probably Dylan Radin steps up into that spot. If Eric McCoy gets a rest day, then Will Clapp Jr. steps up in that spot. Like, you'll see those kinds of things. And I think that that's valuable because it's unlikely you're going to have Banks, Penning, McCoy, Ruiz, and Fuanga all 17 games, right? And so getting Radin some snaps at right guard, getting Radin some snaps at left guard, and building a little bit of the comfort for the other players working with him and him working with the other players. It's logical. It makes sense. So that's what I'm certainly expecting to see as training camp goes along. But as of right now, things are as they left off from minicamp. Devin Neal, New Orleans Saints rookie running back, drafted the 6th round, got some first team reps today, along with Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who comes back for this season. And of course, we saw Alvin Kamara getting his first team reps as well. I think that's really interesting because we saw a lot of Kendre Miller with the second team. We saw a lot of Cam Akers moving about with multiple teams as well. I didn't see a ton of Kendre Miller with the first team. And if he was doing anything with the first team, we didn't see him get carries with the first team, right? But we saw Devin Neal get carries and targets with the first team offense. And so this is interesting to me, right? There was a lot of conversation during mini camps about, or really OTAs probably, about maybe, there are some things on, Kendre Miller not necessarily seeing as many first team reps as the others or early team reps as the others and everything like that. And I said, okay, well, let's wait to see what happens during training camp and everything. And still, this is only the first day of training camp. So I expect that Kendre Miller is absolutely going to get first team reps at some point. I expect that there are going to be days where Kendre Miller is getting reps above Devin Neal, and that Devin Neal is getting reps above Kendre Miller, and that Cam Akers is getting reps above them all, and Marcus Yarns is getting reps above them all. Like, I expect that we're going to see all of that, right? Guys get their opportunity to rotate and everything. But I think that the thing that is interesting is just how quickly Devin Neal went from being a rookie to getting first team reps. So one thing that Kellen Moore said after practice was that the reason why Spencer Rattler got first team reps is because he has a year on Tyler Shough. And so you go with the sort of seniority. It was interesting because Jake Haener's got 2 years on Tyler Shough and a year on Spencer Rattler, but Spencer Rattler's got 6 games of NFL experience. So maybe you go with the thing there. That same logic didn't seem to be applied to the running back room. Clyde Edwards-Helaire did get more opportunities with the first team when Alvin Kamara wasn't in. That makes perfect sense. Seniority there. However, Devin Neal doesn't have seniority over Kendre Miller. So I think that one maybe suggests a little bit more of at least hey, we want to get a really good look at Devin Neal right away, right? Like maybe that's what it is. And this is the first time that we've seen this team do full team reps in all of training, through mini camps and OTAs and everything like that. So maybe it was just about getting an early evaluation on Devin Neal, but certainly something that we'll be keeping a close eye out on as we go through. Okay. Next thing I want to talk about, maybe it's a little esoteric, and feel free to just tell me that I'm an idiot and that this isn't important, but I think it is. There was a rep with the third team offense up against the third team defense. It was 9-on-7. So we saw 2 edge rushers. We saw the linebackers on the field as well as the secondary going up against the quarterback, Jake Haener in this case, tight ends, wide receivers, and running back. So what I saw before the snap is what really impressed me. The offense made like a little bit of a shift, and the defense, third team defense, saw that shift, and I heard maybe 3 or 4 different voices at the same time all call out the same either adjustment or call out the same communication. They all said the exact same thing at the exact same time after seeing the exact same thing at the exact same time. Let me tell you why I was so impressed by that and why I think that that's important. The Saints are bringing in this new defensive system under Brandon Staley. And so a lot is changing, right? That's a different system than what Dennis Allen ran, from basically everything from rush to coverage to run discipline, or not run discipline, but run scheme, like defending the run fits, all these other pieces. And so when you have this all new defense, and one of the biggest things that changes is verbiage. What you call this, what you call that, what you say when this happens, what you say when that happens, what this word means, what that word means. And I was very impressed that the third team defense saw something and all immediately knew together that they were seeing the same thing, saying the same thing, calling the same thing. I really enjoyed that. I really liked seeing that when it came to, if your third team defense is already having that level of consistency in its communication, that probably means great things for your second team defense. That probably means really solid things for your first team defense too. And so I thought that, like, if you're going to show that at any level, showing that with the third team and them nailing that was great. And so it's a small thing. I know, like I said, you could call me an idiot. You could tell me that it's the worst thing and that it's not a real observation, but I thought it was. I thought that it was a really good observation. I really like the idea that you're already seeing that level of cohesion amongst the defense. And so that was really, really good to see. And that's going to be my last highlight for the day. Plays of the day today included Spencer Rattler's connection with Chris Olave over the middle of the field. He also had a great throw on an outbreaking route on the left sideline to Mason Tipton. Good timing route, had to get the ball out before the break was made out of the route, all those other things. Did that extremely well. Good anticipation, everything there. Tyler Shough getting that pass down to Donovan Peoples-Jones, even though it wasn't a catch, it was excellent. And then I think that the other thing that I'll highlight too was Jake Haener's completion to Michael Jacobson over the middle. And then I want to give a special shout out as well to one defensive play in particular. I saw several sacks today. It looked like sacks or pressures from Chase Young and Jasheem Davis and Jonah Williams and Nathan Shepard and all that. But the other one that really stood out to me was a run by Cam Akers up the middle, kind of going over to the right, and DeMarco Jackson in the midst of all the congestion at the line of scrimmage, knocking the football out and seeing Christian Boyd have the awareness to jump on the ball and recover it. So that was the only turnover of the day. It was forced in the run game, and it was forced by the defense. So those are my plays of the day as well. All right, here's what we're going to do. I got another episode coming for you tomorrow morning before I head out to Saints camp. So drop questions. Those of you that are here live, drop questions in your chat. I'll pick a few of those questions and answer them in tomorrow's episode. So go ahead and drop those, and we'll get into that. But I know for sure that I also want to take a look at the wide receivers, the tight ends, and what the linebacker situation looked like. We're going to hit all that in tomorrow's episode, as well as answer some of your questions. We appreciate you very much, as always, for making us a part of your day, a part of your routine, for saying yes to me on the show. If you see me, please say hi. A special shout out to Matt. Thank you for your service. Thank you for saying hi to me today. And of course, if you need anything else around your New Orleans Saints in between these episodes, make sure you follow me on your favorite social media at Ross Jackson, NOLA. Hit me up. Let me know how the family's doing. Let me know how you're living. Let me know how you're momming them. And trust Who Dat Nation, I'll holla at you.